we were talking about this morning.
I gotcha. We're talking about me.
Live.
G'day, Kaz. Adam, how are you, everybody?
Yes. Good morning. We're snapping it.
Yeah, we're snapping it. Just waiting for Facebook a couple seconds, and I think we're good. Welcome to Morning Minutes, episode 202. This one's special. It's a little close to my heart because it's about me. Pizza Boy to real estate mogul, Michael Burgio's real estate career. Who better to speak about it?
Mogul, Michael Burgio. So, what's great, guys, is it's a story I think everyone can relate with when they first get into business, or for the young audience if they're considering getting into a business. Young Billy, who's in year 11 at the moment, 12. He's going to take special interest towards this. People can forward it to their friends and family that are considering getting into real estate. And Michael, you are if I do have to say, guys, I've been a real estate agent for a very long time. And I'm not saying this because Michael and I work closely together, but I would challenge most people in the industry to point out someone who's done as much as Michael has in such a short time in his specialized field. And what I wanted to dig deep down and talk about, Michael, is something that it's probably pretty common to you and I when how you started in the business. But can we go right back to day one of even before day one of real estate, but the day one of the concept of real estate? What made you get into the real estate business? What were the emotions? What were the thoughts? How simple was it? How complex was it?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't something I thought of probably until I left school and started university. So I always loved to work, and where we got the Pizza Boy heading was I worked at Domino's Pizza, Manly Vale, and DY Narrabeen, one owner. So I'm predominantly Manly Vale for it was 10 or 15 years. From the age of 13, I was doing more hours at work than I was going to school. I just loved to work. Then you fast forward to probably when you finish high school, parents and families Italian background, so everyone gets a degree, engineering, half the families like school teachers on dad's side. So it was very pressured to go to do a uni degree. So I enrolled, I did that, but it never really...
What did you enroll for?
I was doing a Bachelor of Business Economics and majoring in accounting, something to do with that. Always business related. Because I love business, I love to work. But the one thing which I didn't realize at the time, at Domino's days, which led me to real estate, was I didn't like the structure of paid per hour. One, there's a glass ceiling, and two, I saw all too often when I was running Domino's, I would have a good staff member, you pay $6, and if they worked hard that hour, you pay them $6. And if you had another staff member who didn't work as hard that hour, you still paid $6. I really didn't sit well with me, the concept of that was your pay, and regardless how hard you work within it, your pay wasn't a true reflection of how hard you worked. I get the argument, obviously, if you do that over a period of time, you may get a higher wage, but it still didn't reflect how I felt inside of how hard I wanted to work. That it would
There was that famous saying, the factory worker says to the salesperson, I don't know how you can go to work and not know how much you're going to get paid. And the salesperson says to the factory worker, I don't know how you can go to work and know how much you're going to get paid.
Yeah, and that was a big thing, which I didn't realize until probably after I very early in the real estate career. So I hated school. I was a naughty kid, but I got off a lot in school because the teachers always knew I was working so much outside of it. I'm talking 30 to 50 hours a week.
So you're at high school?
Year 8 to year 12, 30, 50 hours,
wow.
2 jobs, 3 jobs. My most was 4 jobs at once.
What were your parents saying about that?
They just they loved it. I was just busy, saving my money, working, staying out of trouble. So It was, I think they were just happy with it as well, but it was also done, they didn't really know, but they knew. Like, obviously I wasn't home, but they're just happy I found something I like to do. They knew I was more like, I was never book smart compared to like my brother, but they knew I had this passion of just working. So the idea of doing uni was just like, dagger in the heart, hated it, didn't, whatever. But I psyched myself up. Yep, uni's going to be good. Then I can, I don't know, be an accountant, do some sort of business. And then I remember, Mark, so clearly, I sat in the first lecture, you had all your new books, and within 15 minutes, I was like, fuck this. I hate this. No, uni's not for me. So then I was like, well, what can I do? And I really didn't value my Domino's training and skills and what I learned at the time. I do now so much when you started real estate, but I sort of thought to myself, well, what can, I got no experience, I got no degree, so I got the best marks in school. Like, what am I going to do? And I did love property.
And Michael, people forget you're probably in these businesses like Domino's and McDonald's and stuff like that. There's probably 10,000 lessons. Now, the lessons may be really small, academic, like ridiculously stupid lessons, but they are lessons.
They're phenomenal. And we'll come back to just my view on Domino's and Macca's, and I love it. It's phenomenal. I'll be sending my kids there for the structures and the processes you learn a lot more than I did at school or anything to do with that. So then I was sort of looking basically what jobs have the easiest entry level and you can make the most amount of money. And I did love property. I did think about going into building. I don't know. I don't think in hindsight, Mark, you couldn't imagine me ever doing building. I'm not too handsy. But property, I love the idea of property, but I more loved the idea there was no glass ceiling. It was something that was cool, homes in the local area, and there was no glass ceiling. So, and then I looked at, well, how do you get into property? And at the time, you had 2 levels. You had your certificate of registration, which was only a couple-week course at the time, and a license. And I was like, well, I hate studying, so I'm not just going to jump in to do my license because that's like another 3 or 4 or maybe 9 months of work. So let's just do the basic one. I looked in the newspaper. Every job, there was like a McGrath, there was something else, and then there was professionals, Kevin Stacey. And I called him up because he was the only ad that said, so like everyone was like, send me a resume. And I was like, what's my resume? I'm 20, I've worked at Domino's. What resume is that? But then I spoke to him and I got the interview through there. But a trigger thing where I learned real well with like dialogue. So he was like, Mark, he was your first little position or taste of real estate as well. So
we both popped our cherry to Kevin Stacey of Stacey at First National. God bless him.
Yes. So we're now looking in hindsight how crazy that is. He goes to me. He was very old.
So for anyone who's for anyone who's just tuned in, this is talking about Michael's career in property and starting in real estate, why, how, and him traveling through. Back to you, Burge.
Yep. And I call him up, and I was a timid 18 or whatever I was, and I said, I'm calling, I saw the ad in the paper, and I'm looking for, I saw the ad in the paper, and he goes, tell me in 5 seconds why I should not hang up on you. And I was like, what did I do? What? And then he's like, you heard me. Tell me in 5. Yeah, he was brutal. He's like, tell me in 5 seconds why I don't hang up on you. And
you probably would have hung up on a lot of people knowing him.
100%. And the thing was, and then I replied back, I'm looking for a career in real estate. And then he goes, great, come in, say tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Then when I go there, he's like, do you know why I took this meeting with you? In that call, wow. I was like, it was a 30-second call, and you blasted me saying why I should continue it. And then he's like, I took this meeting with you, and I'm going to basically give you the job because you said you're looking for a career. I'm not looking for people with jobs who aren't looking to be in this for like the long haul. So, and then you sort of get to know that at time. And when, Mark, as you know, you're hiring staff, you're interviewing, like you've got to look for a career long-term, not just a job. There's plenty of other jobs sort of out there, but real estate's definitely a career, and that's sort of was always my mindset. And that led me to look at other careers. Like if you're going to do a building, you do your apprenticeship, it's 4 years of low pay, well, it's always hard work, but low pay, shit work and low pay, 4 years before you judge it. So I always had that sort of mindset going, it's going to be 4 years of shit and just find somewhere. But Kevin Stacey sort of really taught me everything what not to do in that real estate world. He was 90 at the time, so he was at the end, but you learned a lot of good principles. But I definitely got the taste of, I think he sold one property in the 6 months I was there, and I think it may have been so I just got, this is cool, I like this, I know, even though I didn't experience of any of the good stuff, but you just know it clicks. So then I went and did my real estate course, and then I was like, well, I need to find somewhere, because at the time, Mark, I was doing 60 hours with him, 50 hours with him, and I was still doing 50 hours at Domino's. So I was doing 100 hours a week, if not more. And I was like, okay, now I know what I love, because I loved Domino's, and that was hard for me to give that away, that whole thing. So I needed to find something that I was equally as passionate about, and that was real estate. But I wanted to go somewhere where they just looked young, vibe. They thought very in the future, because how I saw I was supposed to do business there, Mark, was door knocking, cold calling. And I came from Domino's. When we wanted deals, we used to market ourselves. We didn't knock on doors and say, hey, do you want to buy a pizza? And that's what I was doing there. So I was sort of like in the hunt for an agency that was a little bit forward thinking compared to that old model. And through a couple of mutuals, I found Novak. And that was through Mindy, the business rep, Jordan, who was my driver at Domino's. So Domino's came again, helped me get the job as well. But then started at reception. I remember we had the meeting with Mindy, Mark, and you came in, and I was sort of a little bit like, I don't care where I start here. I just want to start here. Because I had heard things about how we operate with the sales and the vibe. I thought it was a modeling agency because I worked at the Domino's on the corner, Mark, DY, and when you guys would always get pizza, it was always a very good looking girl come to pick up pizza. So I initially thought Novak was a modeling agency. And then started.
Now, Michael, just for the record, and I don't know how this relates, but at this time you were 60 kilos heavier than what you were today. And what you are today.
Yeah, I was a big boy. So I was 130, I think 135 kilos at my heaviest, and at my lowest I've been 74, around that kilo. So I was 130.
So back then you walked in, you go into this modeling agency at 135 kilos. It's and I remember your suit. Your suit was a very loosely cut suit when you came in. But what I remember about what's at that time, what I remember about meeting you and my impression of you at the time was eye contact. Like you were very, very alert, young guy. Do you know what I mean? So you're snappy.
What else? So what else? But I think the biggest point, and I can get the message out there to people, is try not to hold yourself back, because I had a million reasons not to set foot in a real estate industry where a lot of it was people looking nice hair, nice suits, cars, and I was heavily overweight. So I didn't have the strongest self-esteem or views of myself. At the time, I had already lost maybe 20 kilos before I stepped in the door. So I was on track to improving myself. But the biggest message out there for people is there's always a million reasons not to do it. And I had a lot. The confidence wasn't there. Here I am wanting to get into a role where it's all about you. Your face is there. And I wasn't happy with how my face looked or anything. So I was nervous as batshit. I was scared, but it was just... Yeah. I wanted to find somewhere to work, and I had big goals for myself, and I knew what I looked like then. It wasn't always going to be like that, and I just wanted to work hard somewhere. So that was a big thing for me to get into that position. And then even when front of house, the only position available was reception, which I was like, wow, this guy's putting me as the face of his company. I'm the first person people see when they walk in. I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea, but I'm going to work hard and do the best I can. And the thing that really resonated with me being on the front was, my whole thing was when I ran Domino's was, if I can't rely on you to clean the toilet, I can't rely on you to do any more important tasks. So even though I was at the front lines at reception and you're wiping down tables, you're making coffee for people, you're greeting them, even though that's one of the lower dollar productive tasks, I needed to do that the best to show that I can be like, that was my mindset. Like I taught myself a coffee
that was
art.
Clear.
Yeah, like I taught myself, we'll make it we still had a very good setup and not as good as now, but I was like, if I'm making coffees for people, I wanted to learn coffee art. I'd never done a barista course in my life, but I was like, that's the point of difference that I can show Mark and the clients that I'm not just your standard person standing at the front here. And that, I think that whole mindset has to go through with everything you do. And then obviously I wanted to get into residential sales, but commercial came up, and that was another
something just for everyone to know, something that stood out was your ethos of just wanting, if you could get one job done really well, then you'd move on to the next job. That really, as an employer, that really stood out for me. So whatever I would give you, you would like karate chop it, and then I'd like, oh, now I'll give him this, and then you'd karate chop that, and then I'd go, oh. So I kept giving you tasks, and you kept nailing them. The tasks kept getting more senior and more complex, and you kept nailing it. So it's a bit like the Karate Kid movie or the Karate Kid story in a way, because I remember distinctly at that time, which was probably 6 years ago, we were focusing a lot on our business on SEO, keywords, so people could find keywords. And I remember I took the receptionist, the host at the office, the work of keywords SEO, which is not typical for that role. And I gave that role to you. And I'm like, okay, let me explain. What I want to do is when people write the word, rentals DY, I want, our company to come up. Now and in order to do that, this is how you do it. And I remember you just nailed everything, and there was never an off time. And you would stay in the office till 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 at night to get stuff done that you weren't asked to do out of business hours, but you just wanted it done properly.
Wanted it done, and I would call, and I had no IT background. I was useless. Like, I would get my dad to set up my DVD player. I would get dad to do everything. And don't get me wrong, I was calling dad going, Dad, what is SEO? How do I do this? And he would help. But a lot of it was your self-education. And I think with the message, another message out there or takeaway from my experience to anyone out there, you've got to self-educate yourself. You get obviously a task, you probably get a bit of a description around it, but you need to run off with that ball and just flood yourself with it and just trial and error. Like I was computer illiterate. I was no good, but I had a task, and once again, I knew that was a stepping stone. Like, because one thing resonated with my dad, what he said with uni, because I was looking at engineering and I looked at the work he was doing, and then I looked at the coursework, and I was like, Dad, these two things are nothing similar. And the big thing he said was, uni is not necessarily about using what you learn in the job. It's proving that you can absorb information, learn it, and then pass a test, regardless if it actually has any use for the path you're going down. Some does, some doesn't. So then my whole thing was like, with the SEO, it's not that it's going to help me sell properties, which it may, and it does, but it was proving to an employer, yourselves, I can take this role on and get shit done and evolve through it. And then you get the next task. And so
then what was where did you go from there? So after there was reception, there was handing you a shitload more roles to get done within that job. What happened after that?
And then I remember you sitting me down in a meeting, and I think I either thought, because this was probably about 6 months into it, and I was like, I remember watching a movie where basically the guy didn't get a promotion because he was too good at that role. And I was sitting in my head going, shit, like, I don't want to be so good at reception that I don't get an opportunity somewhere else, but I need to move. I loved real estate. I knew that was where I was because I would vie before the agents. And I don't know why it was. I thought I was going to, no, I don't think I was going to, I don't know, something, I'll come back to that. But anyway, you sit down in a meeting with me and Mindy was there. And basically you're like, oh, we really want to grow this commercial business. You told me that your dad did commercial real estate. You've always had a passion to do commercial, but it just didn't, you were a predominantly residential agent. And Mark, I remember the key thing, he was just like, I know nothing about commercial real estate. You know nothing about commercial real estate, but let's just work hard and smash it. And I was like, yes, let's just get into it. Like, what was sort of your mindset there, like, as well?
Well, look, I knew that I could sell, and I knew that I had a hell of a lot of experience at selling well, and I had a lot of experience at training people well. And when I looked at that commercial aspect of the business, I always wanted to do it from a kid, but I needed to focus on residential and have a reasonable grounding there before we moved over to commercial. So once we had that reasonable grounding, we needed to resource up, and I needed good people behind it. So coming to you was, okay, well, I know what needs to be done. If you're up for it, let's do it. And then, boy, were you up for it.
Yeah, and you've always been really good at taking a blank canvas, because I think anyone out there who's employed someone, when they've got a lot of experience, they come sometimes be very stuck in their ways, where I was just like this blank canvas sponge. And to the extent, and I did find it difficult at the beginning, because we had like your Lee Woodward's training that I watched and listened to a lot, Tom Panos as well, but there was no one doing commercial. I didn't even know the difference between retail, office, and warehouse. Like, we're talking blank canvas. But it was, let's just fumble our way through it, work really hard, and just serve people better. And that, I think that was always that sort of ethos. Do basically whatever anyone's doing now, let's do the opposite. And I think I was very fortunate. We had a booming residential section of the company, like one of the best in Sydney, definitely top of Northern Beaches. And then I would just look at how it was done residential, because that's what I always aspired to do, and how it was done commercial. And it was done really crap. It wasn't done with, like, a $3 million listing for commercial wouldn't have professional photos. They wouldn't have floor plans. They wouldn't have good text. Like, it was, if you look at a residential listing, let's say that's 9 out of 10. Commercials were 2 out of 10. So we picked a low-hanging fruit, Mark, at the beginning, just saying, let's just do the basics very well.
So how old were you at that point? How long had you been on reception for? 9 months, 1 year?
Nah, 4 to 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah, 6 months. I would have been 21, maybe 22.
What were you thinking when you were presented with this opportunity? What did that look like? Were you thinking, like, were you scared, stressed, or you felt relatively comfortable with the business?
I was excited because when the premise is sort of like, let's do this together, I never felt like I was alone. And a lot of training things I always heard from principals was like, there's the yellow pages and go find deals. But I felt really at ease because you were like, let's do this together. And basically you took me under your wing for 3 years. Like, it was in the office. If people wanted to know where Mark was, they would ask me. Like, that's how close it was. And I felt like that you can't explain, like, you can't put that into words. One, my appreciation for it, but also, like, it just gave us such good power where you got your knowledge and experience. And I just had this innocence of, let's do whatever it takes to get shit done and try new things. And I think the biggest thing was always outside the box. Like, you can take, what's the saying? You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And that's basically,
Yep.
you're dragging me to the water in a good way, drag me to the water, but you can't make me drink. It's got to be on myself. And that's where I think I did really well, where I engaged India to do like virtual furniture when this was never done before on an office, and just always finding random stuff to do. But also the biggest thing I found, Mark, was most commercial agents only did Monday to Friday, 9 till 4. And I was like, well, straight away I'm doing 7 days a week, because then I don't, like, if it's a Saturday, Sunday, if they're not even working and I'm the only agent working, I don't even have to have the experience, because I'm the only person working.
So just while you change that battery on that light, I'll just explain
you
the
take
audience
over.
a little bit more. So guys and girls, the distinct thing with Michael, and look, this was his way, I think, that he conquered the mountain. And it doesn't, you don't have to conquer the mountain with hours or sweat or blood, but that's definitely what Michael did. So what I found is this was a guy that whatever you passed him, he did it well. Whatever you passed, and at the end of the day, we're families selling to families, right? So he was a good guy. He was super empathetic with people, particularly because of your age. I think that sometimes if you've been in business for over 30 years as a commercial agent, you probably become a little bit school of hard knocks.
Yes.
But not the case at all. So you were working hard, good work ethic. What was the next part of your career, Michael, where it was like the next step? So now you're out of reception. Now you're learning those couple of years of how to sell, processes, closing deals, terminology and commercial. What was the next milestone in your career?
Yeah, so a lot of it at the beginning was just the leasing, and then I reckon that next milestone was then really getting into sales, and then getting a lot of calls and referrals. I think within a couple of years, I started becoming quite well known, and I the big credit for that is marketing. Billboards marketing. I think this was just, and as the reason people have that behind you was, and this was
guys and girls, if you're not from the area on the northern beaches in Sydney, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Billboard. So I don't know, I remember an American movie, and I can't remember which movie it was, where the guy had his face on every billboard as a realtor. I think it was in Miami or California or something. You took that to a new level. You have your head, your big nugget on every window that you can, or signboard or billboard that you can possibly get it. Yeah. And it works well for you.
It does, because I was just like, Coles and Woolworths have signage and marketing everywhere, not just where they have a shop. And I don't know why real estate agents only put marketing where they've got a property for sale. And it was your idea, Mark. I remember above our office, we were sitting in a meeting, and you said to the guys, who wants something, the sign above the door? And no one said anything. And I was like, the new kid, like, I do, because I want to, if I can put my name.
So you've always been the guy, and for anyone getting into real estate, you've always been that guy who was like, if you think it's a good idea, if there's any inkling of this could work, you would throw yourself, you would lunge forward on it. And that was another example of it, even with no money, with no knowledge of what it could do, you're like, this is a good idea. Yeah.
Let's do it. I'll call myself the commercial expert, and I had no idea about it, but let's do it in marketing. And I think the biggest thing was, and I learned this from an early age, the person above you has to have what you want, the lifestyle, the work, the money, just everything. I hear a lot of buddies, and if you're out there listening to this and you're on this path, and look at the person who you aspire to or is above you, your manager or the CEO, if they don't have what you want, then you need to change paths. And a big thing was, whatever you said, I just did, because you had the office, you had the cars, you had the family, like, you just had what I wanted, or had what I wanted. So if you said this is good,
you're a sum of the people around you and your friends around you.
Yeah. So then marketing was a big thing, then hitting to sales, getting a lot of referral business in, and just still keeping, and then that just escalates. And I think within a couple of years, we were getting, well, within the first quarter mark, like starting as a sales agent, in my mind, I was like, what's the highest quarter in the company? What's the largest sale in the company? What's this? And that was just a checklist for myself. And within a year,
quarter is revenue that you can generate into 3 months of business, which most agents work off. We work off, how much you can generate in that quarter. So we always talk quarters.
And I've always just been like, when I want it, because the one thing at Domino's, Mark, where it came with Domino's, we had who can make the pizza the fastest, who can cut a pizza the fastest. There was all these little internal competitions, and I won them all. Like, I kept working until I won them all over the 10 years, and had over the district of Northern Beaches, the 10 shops, including Crow's Nest. I was the number one pizza maker. I just always wanted to be number one in the career that I did. So a big thing that was my motivation the whole way through was like, so what are these records? And over the years, I've ticked them all off. Sales, quarters, most managed. Like, that was my big driver the whole way through. But then I think, Mark, where you get into the second phase or the third phase, we've noted many times, there's like version 1 of Michael, version 2 of Michael, where you keep sort of upgrading. But I think maybe in my own mental note, one of the biggest one was when you've ticked off all the championships, you've got to build on yourself. Like, you are your biggest competitor. Compare you with you. Because, to be honest, not saying, but when you get at those type of years, a couple of the guys aren't here anymore, but when my gap, like when I started from zero and they're say doing 80,000 a quarter, but then when you start doing 300 and they're there, you can get complacent. So my biggest shift in mindset was not to get complacent. And you're obviously very good at making sure I don't get complacent, because when you start comparing yourself to someone down here, you bring yourself down. So a big shift in my own mental thing was always, because I used to always compare myself to someone else's record to beat the record, which is great until you've beaten it. But then you've got to compare yourself with you and constantly improve yourself. And you are only competing with yourself, because that was a big thing as well.
Yes. And I personally think it's, then you start looking at other parts of your life and seeing how you can also lift those up to a better standard, whether it's health or weight or relationships or kids or travel, or you start looking in investments. You start looking at those things which you seem to be doing. But Michael, so that the next milestone was you started doing great figures. When was that?
So, well, technically year one, the first 6 months reception, my first quarter was where most people don't really, you would probably attest, like when you get into real estate, you probably don't see them making money till quarter 2, maybe quarter 3, like straight away I've always done. So that's fine. But I think the big thing was starting to get some really big, significant deals year 2 or 3. But I think it was more than that, Mark. It was probably after 4 or 5 years, because I think I'm in it for 7 years now. But it was more not about turnover, but about leftover. And that's when I relied more on people like yourself to be like, okay, be better with your money. Then you got to have the relationships and your health is very important, because my weight was a yo-yo throughout this whole time as well, because I'm big on 0 to 100. It's like I either do it 0% or I'm 100%. And I had that big yo-yo with weight as well. So the big thing was, once you've lost the weight and then you've done the big figures, is just being consistent, because you don't want a one-hit wonder. There's a lot of careers and there's a lot of people, they do great 1 year and then you don't hear of them, or they do something well and you don't hear from them. So I think it was really after probably year 4 when you've done great figures, but you're backing it up. And now it's like you got to back it up and be just a better all-round person as well, which was a big thing. Buy a property, be more consistent with health as well, and just have a cleaner lifestyle and a sustainable lifestyle as well. Because don't get me wrong, there's huge ups and downs. Being 21, making good money in a flashy industry where you wear suits and cars, there's a lot of people that get off the right road, you could say it, Mark. And that's where you got to rely yourself.
And there's a lot of people that I always say the saying, burn their boats, so they burn their bridges or boats or whatever you want to call it. But, it's then elevating yourself to new heights rather than destroying things and rebuilding and going through the thrill of it again. Everyone's different. I see more thrill in building on what was built, building a higher skyscraper than another city. But everyone's different.
Yeah.
So
the key thing as well, Mark, I never judged anything. Like I said to myself, but once we started that, when we had that meeting, Mark, about jumping into commercial, I was like, don't judge anything for 4 years. It's 4 years. If you make money, great. Like I went into that thinking, I may not make any comms, but that's okay because I'm doing an apprenticeship. That was my biggest thing. I had no judgment or I didn't feel entitled to shit.
You were primed for a degree,
Yeah, I didn't judge it, and it was just grateful for the opportunity because not many people have it, and that's where I was working for it. But I think, it's been a great road, and now moving forward, it's just about building onto it, helping more people, fine-tuning, and just still kicking goals, really. But the biggest takeouts were you're working hard, do what people won't, and have that enthusiasm and energy because it will, like, the amount of business I got just on my enthusiasm rather than my experience, because I didn't have it. All my competitors had 20, 30, 40 years experience on me, but I would just outwork them, give everything a go, and just, you got to have great support. You get less and less friends, the more successful you get, but you get stronger friends, stronger mentors, and I think that's the best combination of everything moving forward. And we've had a lot of great viewers and holding him this morning, so it's very, I'm very happy to see that people are interested in my story and my journey here at Novak.
Michael Burgio. So tell me, what's next?
To continue to grow, and just, I think now it's not as much about me, but as more on the company level, the crew, and just taking over more and more dominance. As you can see in the sign behind you, Mark, 70% of deals in DY we're done for sale and commercial. I want to spread that across the northern beaches, but at the same time, health consistently, relationships, ship, not plurals, and then just plow that through and just keep building. Don't reinvent the wheel, stay on the straight and narrow. A lot of people jump, like Mark, I can't imagine, there's so many other agents I've seen who have been on a great path, but then they change, they shoot themselves on the foot. So my biggest thing is not self-destruction. You know what I mean? Like I am my biggest enemy, and I am not enemy, but I am my biggest ego. So
ego's a really, really hard thing to manage for brilliant salespeople. It's very, very hard because you go into presentations and pitches telling people how solid your services and products are.
Yes.
And they award you the business all the time.
Yep.
You sort of, and then you keep pushing it, and it's a pretty rewarding job, but it's that self-gratification is a bit dangerous as well.
It is, and it's kept that apart. But you know what? I'm so excited about what I've done in the first sort of 6-7 years of sales, knowing absolutely nothing to start with. Yeah. I'm so keen for the next 6-7 years, and what I can do personally under the brand and with other people. Like we've got great people, James, Kim, team, and I'm just excited.
It's huge.
And
it's huge. I think, and just to quantify this for people that are watching, guys and girls, that where Michael's become a national identity in the commercial business, and the commercial arm of our business is known nationally, thanks to the hard work. So what we mean by that is realcommercial.com.au is, realestate.com.au. Their arm of commercial is Real Commercial. every year on year, we are nominated in the top 3 agents in the country as identified as one of the best companies. And that is, so when Michael is talking about his rise, like, this is not going on in our head or his head. The best people and the most the identities in the business are confirming that. Tom Panos, Lee Woodward, Real Commercial, realestate.com.au. So, you know, I think it's a brilliant story. It's a credit to you. I probably don't say it much, and I certainly don't say it publicly much, but mate, well done. It's a amazing book that the Michael Burgio Book of Life is an amazing book of life. This guy's just started it. He's not far off the first couple of chapters in life, and what an amazing read it's been. Sharing this today with everyone is very touching to to me, and certainly I know to yourself, Michael, and your family, and the people around you that have supported you. You know, your mum and dad, your sister, and your brother, who I know you hold very, very close. These guys, and I can say this looking from the outside in. This is an amazing person and an amazing family with, and your buddies. And I just had the conversation this morning with Lisa, and what came out of Lisa's mouth was that what brilliant friends that you have. Your friends around you, what champions they are, and like I said, you are a sum of everybody around you, and that's Michael Burgio.
Thank you, and you hit the nail on the head. It's like you get, and you'll know this, Mark. Anyone listening, the harder you work, everything is energy, and it comes from somewhere. You're either spending all your time with friends socializing, or you're spending all your time working. But you've only got 24 hours in a day, and it's so important to get yourself in an environment that you can flourish. Like, there's a lot of companies where I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done or at least as quickly. Like, I always knew I had that drive to work, but it's like a partnership, friendship that we've had, Mark, where it's just, because I remember early on, and I think the biggest thing which kept me going was probably after year 3 or 2, when I started doing a lot of residential, and that did tick off a lot of the guys, because I'm supposed to be this commercial agent doing a lot of resi, but I'd always said I just wanted to do deals and just help people. I didn't care what I did. I just wanted to do it. And I remember something Mark said, he goes, "I've got your back." And that's all he had to say. And that's all I needed, which was that reassurance, just head down, bum up. I've got your back. Don't worry about any of the noise. It's not my name on the building, and I've got your back. So let's just power forward. And that's always resonated with just that mindset of going forward. So I got to say thank you for you to that, and Lisa, of course, and then the family. But it's you've got to have that good community within work, and just a couple really good friends. Like you only need 3 or 4 that you catch up who are on very similar paths as well. Like, they're all different fields. Like, one's electrician, one's in the defense, and one's in finance, but same ethos, and celebrate your successes rather than, there's a lot of people out there that love to hear you fail. Let's put it that way. So I got to say thank you.
This is your life.
Lisa. This is my life. So
episode 202. Thanks for sharing with everyone.
Thanks for letting me share and the opportunity. So yeah,
good on you, buddy. Well
we're back
done.
tomorrow. Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Take a bow.
Well, I hadn't finished. Thank you, Steph.